Hi, I'm Annie Botticelli, and this is the Storyteller Forecast for Taurus for July 2016. Go to my website, anniehelpsyou.com, see what's new on my blog, check out my enrollment for my Astrology Apprenticeship program in July, and if you want to bust out of the confines, the geographical confines of your light work business, then check out my Creating Successful Online Business course enrolling in July. So what's happening in July? This is a mega time for action. We have Mars direct. We have Jupiter having been direct for a while, but Mars wasn't, so there were some limitations. We're out of the Mercury retrograde and shadow period. We've got a massive amount of trines, favorable angles. This is an awesome time for action. So I'm going to go into more details about why you really want to seize this opportunity to blaze forward while you can, and why I think this is a good idea, after I go into the details of specific things just for Taurus. So, for the early and most middle degree placements, and coming soon for the late degree placements, there is a massive focus on the third house. The early degree placements are the ones from the beginning of the sign, like the 20th through the 30th. So really April born Taurus placements are early, 0 through 9 degrees if you're watching for your rising sign. Middle degree placements are May 1st through around the 10th, or 10 degrees through 19 degrees if you're watching for your rising sign. And late degree placements are around May 11th through the end of the sign, or 20 to 29 degrees for your rising sign. The reason why I break this up is because the planetary clusters, the ones that move quickly, like Venus and Mercury and the Sun and wherever the new moon is, you experience this energy first if you're in early or early middle degree placement, and it's like staggered, like someone waiting online to get their food. You know, the people at the beginning of the line are getting their food, and the people at the end of the line have that food energy around them. They can smell it, they can see it, but they're not getting the food yet because they're at the end of the line. So your late degree placement is going to stagger the timing for astrological transits, and in order to give you more accuracy, I break it down this way. Okay. So coming soon for late degree placements, current in July for early and middle degree, is the Venus and Mercury and the Sun and the new moon in the third house. This is like busy, 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 crazy, all over the place energy of Gemini, because the third house is is Gemini. It's the same thing. So this third house has to do with communication, including all devices that you communicate on. It has to do with transportation, so all things you use to transport yourself. It has to do with general mobility, including short-term and short-distance travel. So it's like your mind and your body is aBUZZ. You know, it's just like zzz, busy, 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 everything all over the place, lots of social interactions, mental interactions, you know, just a lot of thinking, a lot of doing. It's a very, very busy time. This also could bring up things involving relatives that aren't your parents or kids, like siblings and grandpa and, you know, other relatives, because the third house features that energy. So you could have a lot of things going on involving those people in your life. Each planet has its own personality, and it brings this energy to that field of experience. So when you have a pileup of energy, it's like having a bunch of it's like a planet party, a pile-up planet party, you know, and so there's different aspects of that field of experience that are highlighted for each planet that gets there. So it's a very rich experience when you have a lot of different planets there. Now these are short term, so they're the ones that, you know, happen over weeks and then they pass and they move somewhere else. So if you want to get a new device, if you want to get a new vehicle, this is the time that you've been waiting for, because Mars is finally direct. You don't have to deal with Mercury. So this is a fantastic time to improve your ways that you communicate and move yourself around. Many people will be getting casts off and their mobility will be improved during this time. They'll be physically more mobile. And then something else I wanted to say about the third house. Communication, it's busy. I don't want to lose it. Okay, maybe it'll come back. So it's like this major movement and, oh, that's what it was, learning. So if you're trying to learn something or you're trying to teach something, more with the learning or gathering information, this is a fantastic time for that. If you want to teach a class, if you want to gather information for a class, if you want to gather information for a project, The third house is very much about learning. It's also about sharing information. It's about writing and editing and publishing and everything having to do with the spoken word, the written word, sharing of information. And it has to do with friends as well, and gatherings and things like that. So the late degree placements, you still have this pile up of energy, the planetary pile up party, in the second house. And the second house has to do with your money, your finances, your material possessions. I call it the bling and things house. You know, it's like things that are expensive, your relationship with the material realm, everything having to do with environmental focus is also here. The range of this Taurus energy runs from the super opulent and having this very rich relationship with things. And also on another end of the spectrum, it has to do with leaving a light imprint and working with the environment in harmony. So it doesn't matter how it's manifesting for you, it's the second house that is a major focus. And many people, when they have a pileup of energy in their second house, they make more money. They have a new income stream come in, or what do you call it? My mind. It's like a chance to make more money. So if you're not seeing the money come in when the energy is focused in the second house, that's okay, because it's like it could lay a foundation and then the money could come next. Like you have this feeling that something's going to work out and something's happening, but it didn't come in yet. That could still be very valid. You know, it's just a focus on your finances, a focus on your value of things, what your personal perspective of value is. Whenever I see a pileup of energy in this house, I always say to ask the question, what are the things that are your priorities? What are the things that you're doing? What percentage of time are you spending on things that are not your priorities, and how can you change that? There's an amazing book I've been very hot on lately called The 4-Hour Work Week by Timothy Ferriss, and woo, this guy is a powerhouse. So if you are finding that you're spending a lot of time working because your family is your priority, but yet you're spending most of your time away from your family because your family is a priority, then you need to restructure some things in your experience so that you can spend more time with your family and still have the finances that you need to do that. And people do this, and you can do it too. So maybe this second house energy could be focusing on that for you. Sometimes Taurus energy tends to work harder instead of smarter, and maybe it's time to change that around. Okay, so a longer term transit is Jupiter. So all Taurus placements are going to have the energy of Jupiter in the 5th house, but the very early placements are going to have a little bit left of Jupiter in the 5th house and then moving into the 6th house. So I'm going to talk about Jupiter in the 6th house first, because this is what's coming for everyone at some point. And again, the time frame will be staggered depending on where you are in the timing spectrum of the Taurus placements, early, middle, or late. So this is what's coming. Jupiter in the 6th house is all about expanding your health and expanding your daily experience. So speaking of what I was talking about before, this idea of working less and making more, Jupiter really wants to help you do that. That's part of Jupiter's job when it's in the 6th house, is to improve your work situations. Now, for some of you, that will mean that someone pesky at work goes away, and now your life is so much better because that person isn't there, you know? And for others, that might mean you get a new job. Or for others, that might mean you run your own business now instead of working for someone else. For others, it might mean you get a job and that's easier for you instead of running your own business, you know? Or for some of you, that might mean that you weren't employed and Jupiter brings employment. Some of you, it could mean that you've been working a lot and you start to get a break. So whatever the experience of improvement in your daily life, whatever that is for you, that's what Jupiter wants to bring you. And Jupiter wants to bring you the best health ever. If you haven't listened to my June report, then definitely do that, because I talked about a lot of aspects regarding health that were global based on the Jupiter-Pluto trine. And I made some really great recommendations that for people with conditions that are supposed to not be able to be healed or that are enigmatic, you might find some answers in that, in the Taurus June report. Okay, so that's where Jupiter is going, and the very early degree placements are going to start to have that showing up. The rest of you are going to still have Jupiter in the 5th house. So Jupiter in the 5th house expands creativity and things involving children and fun and romance and hobbies. Many astrologers believe that Jupiter in the 5th house brings you your best chance at bringing in true love. This is the house of true love, and Jupiter, the great expander, being there, it improves your magnetism to that experience. Now, I always bring the counterbalance when I talk about things like that, it is a universal law that you can't pull in anything, you can't attract to you anything that's not a vibrational match. So if you've been trying to pull in your soulmate, your twin, whatever you want to call this person, and you're not doing it, either it's just not the right time, or you're blocking it through non-magnetism to that, non-attraction to that. So deep inner work, like using the Presence Process by Michael Brown is my favorite resource, can help you to shift into alignment with the things that you want. And there are many other resources that talk about this because it's a law of the universe. So anyone looking at these laws, understanding them, are going to have the same message. You have to be a vibrational match with the things that you want. So all that being said, Jupiter being in the 5th house gives you a really great chance to bring in your person. It also brings you a chance to have more fun than you've had in a long time and set the precedence for having more fun in the future. So if you're feeling like you have that urge to do something crazy, like instead of working, going and having fun, then that might be actually what you're supposed to be doing. That might be what the transits are telling you. Sometimes when people are out having a good time, they have a creative idea that then makes them more money, that makes them have to work less. So we are, for whatever reason, bound to this. I have to think, I have to work, I have to focus on whatever it is with the money. And then a lot of times we get locked into a box. But then if you step out of it for a little while, sometimes you'll find that it just floats right in. I've had this happen on so many occasions when I feel like I'm not getting anywhere with something and I step away from it. Then as soon as I step away from it, the solution comes in. And so that's like what this energy is, Jupiter wants you to have more fun. And the more you can do that, the more you're going to improve your circumstances overall. Okay, so those are the things that are specific for your sign. And now I want to talk about the transits that are general transits that will affect you just as much, but everyone will also be feeling those. So I call this month Sugar and Spice because the way that the energies of Cancer, which are like smooth and sweet, come together with the energies of Leo, which are spicy, it reminds me of a recipe, a favorite recipe that I put together myself called Sexy Peach Pie. I haven't talked about my Sexy Peach Pie in a while. I think it's been years since I've mentioned this. But the month just feels like that to me because there's honey and the peaches in the pie, and that's like the sweet, sultry Cancer energy. And then I put cayenne pepper in it, enough to notice. And that is the Leo, the spice, and so this is the overriding energy of the month. One of the most important things to know about this month for everyone is that this is a time to act, unless of course your intuition says something otherwise, because you always have to have your intuition supersede what general energies might be. But this is the first month since March that we don't have influence from Mercury retrograde. Mercury's retrograde phase long past, and we don't have that to look at until August 10th when the shadow period starts again. And Mars has gone direct as of June 29th. So we are still in the shadow period of Mars retrograde, which means that Mars, which rules your oomph, your zest, your get up and go, how you use your energy, Mars is still a little sleepy. But it's direct nonetheless. So if you have been waiting since March to launch a bunch of things like I have, July is a wonderful time to do that. It's not as clear in some ways as the last 3 weeks of October, the whole month of November, and just the beginning several days of December, because that next window of time for action is when we don't have any personal planet retrograde influence or in shadow period. And that period of time, October, November, December, like once we're about a week into October, the rest of October, November, and the beginning of December, is the first time in the entire year of 2016 that we don't have influence from a personal planet being retrograde. Personal planets are the ones that are closest to us. So specifically, we talk about Mars and Venus and Mercury because those are the ones that go retrograde. So you have a window of time here to act, and I have 3 reasons why I feel like this is a time to act unless you're intuitively led to do your launches in the fall, in which case that would be fine too. The first is because we're not having to deal with Mercury retrograde. The second is because Mars is sleepy, but Mars is direct. The third is because there are amazing aspects this month. There are just so many glorious aspects. Many of them are trines. Trines are 120-degree angles, which are considered to be the most favorable in astrology as far as smoothness and easiness and flow. So we've got trines between personal planets, which last like a couple of days. And then we have trines between a personal planet and some outer planets, and those last, more than that, like maybe a week or so. And then we still have a carryover from the big dog trine from last month, the last week in June, where Jupiter and Pluto had their final convergence. They've been dancing in and out of this configuration since fall of 2015. So you still have Jupiter and Pluto, these outer planets. When the outer planets move into any kind of convergence, the effects of that connection last for a longer period of time because these planets take longer to move. So they're kind of just like locked in a configuration. And even though the most powerful time of the energy has passed, it's just recently passed and you're still very much feeling it. So trines on all levels. There's a couple of dicey spots this month, one on July 11th and one on July 16th. Both could possibly be jarring aspects with Uranus. So you kind of expect the unexpected around those times, jolting news, jolting information that comes in. But the predominating energy of the month is really smooth, time for action, time to move forward. Another day to pay attention to, or the days around this day, is July 19th, when we have the full moon at 27 degrees of Capricorn. Full moons bring fullness, completion, fruition. Sometimes something comes in that you've been hoping for, or something wonderful happens so that you're emotional in a happy way. But sometimes the emotions are stressful, or stress or drama. So the energy is focused around Capricorn, and Capricorn rules father figures, authority figures, your work, your career, your life purpose. So there's possibility that a lot of smiles and recognition could come in from this fullness, but there's also the possibility of attention being brought to a work issue or, something that's been pending, that's been stressful. If you have anything with a father figure, with an authority figure, with someone at work, especially an authority figure situation at work, my recommendation is to work out the charge around that situation as much as possible before the full moon. Sometimes full moons bring things that we could not have anticipated, and it's just kind of like, what? Where did that come from? But sometimes it's like the coming to a head of something that's been pending. So if you know that every time you see a certain person at work, there's like a bad energy between you, or that you get irritated or stressed when you see them, you can do energy before the full moon to work it out within yourself. And one of the best tools that I have found to do this, and it works powerfully, I've done this at workshops where people who don't know anything about the book I'm going to recommend did this exercise and they had amazing effects. It's from a book called The Marriage of Spirit by Leslie Temple Thurston with Brad Laughlin. And these are wonderful people, and this book is amazing, amazing spiritual tool. The exercises in section 2 give you this way to work out a problem that's on your mind, where it's like a mental exercise, but then it's also a spiritual exercise. And you'd be surprised at what you can clear on your own without even interacting with someone. So the more you can do that before these points of fullness, the easier possibly they could be. So at the end of the month, we've got a series of nice aspects with the planet Uranus, bringing creativity and genius and surprises that will likely be positive. The ones on the 11th and the 16th are those kind of unwelcome surprises usually. But when that planet is in a positive aspect, usually it's like something comes from the blue that's pretty cool. So something that is going on, that is pending for us to be discussing again, that I'm just going to bring up now, even though it doesn't actually go direct until August, is Saturn in Sagittarius. Saturn moved into Sagittarius and started, and this was last year, or actually at the end of 2014. It's been ongoing, and then it moved forward, and then it moved backwards, back into Scorpio, and so it's been going on. But since March, Saturn has been retrograde. And when it's in retrograde, it's more working on things in the backdrop. But then once it moves forward, which will happen in August, it's time to start bringing those things back into the forefront. So here are the two things I recommend involving Saturn and Sagittarius. The first is to understand that Saturn in Sag wants to help you bring about your big dreams into reality. Saturn is the taskmaster. Sag is the big thinker. They're not in an easy aspect with each other generally, or in a resonance with each other, but they can be very helpful to each other because they provide this important counterbalance. So whatever big dreams, big goals, destiny, something that just seems maybe even unreachable. Like if someone asked you, what is it that you really would like to do if you had all the resources and the wherewithal to do it? Those kind of big dreams. Saturn wants to help you in the time that it's in Sagittarius to create those big dreams. But what Saturn's going to say you have to do is to work hard and to be disciplined and to get efficient with your energy. That's a higher version of the energy of Capricorn. The lower vibration can be just kind of addicted to work and work for the sake of itself. But the higher vibration of Capricorn, which Saturn rules, which is why it's involved here, is that it wants you to work smarter. And this is a theme that I've been talking about for a while, and I'm going to keep talking about it because this is part of our evolution if we choose to accept it, where we work smarter instead of harder. We might also work a little harder, but we wind up working smarter. So if you figure out the dream, get clear about it, then make a timeline about what would have to happen in order for you to get there, and then break it down into measurable steps. So if you want to be a filmmaker, right, you would have to first get a good camera, right? Maybe you need some training. Maybe you'd need to be able to take trips to the places where you want to do filming. Maybe you need to have a screenplay. Maybe you need to, whatever it is. So get the big dream in your mind. Think about the things that you would need for creating that, and then keep breaking those down into what you have to do every day to get to the big dream. And that's what Saturn wants to help you do. So here in July, right before it's about to go direct, be thinking about this so that you can have your plan ready. So these are the general energies of the month for everyone. And if you would like some assistance in using these energies and the ones that are more specific to your chart, which I can't see in the general horoscopes, then check out my website, anniehelpsyou.com. You can see more about my personal coaching. You can also sign up for my free email newsletter and become part of my community and get the write-ups that I talk about with more detailed explanations of the aspects and what planets are involved, etc. And definitely check out, if you're interested in learning astrology and you resonate with how I teach, my Astrology Apprenticeship program will be enrolling in July, and my Creating Successful Online Business program will be enrolling in July. And I have lots of self-development programs on my website as well, and my blog. So go to anniehelpsyou.com, and I hope you have a wonderful month. See you next month. Bye.